We've already had the warmest day of the year so far, and we're in the midst of some potentially notable early April heat. But how long will this heat last, and what's in store for the rest of this week? Well, welcome to this week's Deep Dive. I'm Annie Shuttleworth, presenter and meteorologist here at the Met Office. And this week, we'll be taking a closer look at the heat at the moment, the sunshine, how long that will last. We'll also have a little look at some cyclones going on elsewhere in the globe, and also a look back at Storm Dave from the Easter weekend. If you've not joined us for all of these deep dives, welcome. Please make sure you subscribe and like and share this video with anyone else you think might be interested. So we're looking at the heat today, but before then, we'll take a look back at Storm Dave. It brought a pretty unsettled start to the Easter bank holiday weekend, and in the satellite image behind me here we can look at how Storm Dave developed throughout the weekend. So it started to develop on the Good Friday out to the southwest of the UK, and then pushed across northwestern parts of the UK, most notably parts of Northern Ireland, as well as Northern England, North Wales as well. We saw gusts of 93 knots across parts of the far north of North Wales. Capel Curig had 93 miles per hour, which is the highest gust recorded on the Saturday of the Easter weekend. Obviously, the Easter weekend does fall at different points between March and April, but it was the windiest Easter Saturday on record in the UK with that 93 miles per hour. But then the Easter weekend got progressively more settled. We've started to drag in more of a southerly wind that's brought that warmth, that high pressure, that sunshine for many of us. So it has become progressively more settled. As I said, we've already had the highest temperature of the year so far, beating the temperatures we saw on the 31st of March. We've seen so far 22.4 degrees across parts of Wales on today, and temperatures could reach 25 degrees. And into Wednesday, we could see temperatures of 26, possibly 27 degrees. So that heat is expected to build into Wednesday. Why is that happening? Well, this is the big picture. We've got the jet stream on here and the pressure pattern. Now, although we've got quite an active jet stream out across more western areas of the Atlantic, actually closer to the UK, it's quite an amplified picture. You can see it diving down to the south, helping to develop this area of low pressure down to the south of the UK, bringing some unsettled weather to parts of Portugal as well as Morocco. And then it amplifies up around to the north of the UK, and that means we've got high pressure actually dominating our weather out to more eastern areas. And around that high pressure, we've got a southerly wind coming up from the near continent, which is starting to warm up at this time of year. The land is starting to warm up. Days are now longer than nights. The sea is still pretty cold. You will have noticed that if you were headed to the coast on the weekend. But daytime temperatures across the land starting to build up. And we've also got coming up with this southerly wind quite warm air. So it's not just the daytime sunshine getting that heat going, it's the warmth of the air coming up from the tropics, in fact. Now it's this plume here that kind of pushes up across the UK through Tuesday and Wednesday that's developing that peak of the heat. And you can see that it's focused more across more western areas through Tuesday. But then as that jet stream, that more mobile part of the jet stream starts to push in from the west, that heat is pushed over to more eastern areas. So it's more eastern parts of the UK towards London and the southeast that will see the higher temperatures through Wednesday. And that's where we could potentially see that 26 or 27 degrees. But then things do change. That heat is not going to last all that long. We'll see a few days of fine sunny weather. But there is a change on the way from Thursday onwards. You can see not only colder air, but more unsettled air coming in. So there'll be an increase in rain, colder nights as well, and some windy days as well. And then looking ahead to the weekend, while this area of low pressure develops down to the southwest of the UK, quite tightly packed isobars around this area of low pressure, quite potential for a fairly windy spell. Nothing quite like what we saw over the weekend with Storm Dave, but potentially for parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, quite a windy Friday night into Saturday. We'll look at more details on that in just a moment. But before then, let's look at that heat. So as I mentioned, through Wednesday, through Wednesday afternoon, we've got this cold front pushing in from the north and west, so that's going to introduce some colder air, some cloudier weather up to the northwest, but it's eastern areas where we could start to see temperatures rising. So the maximum temperatures through this week will likely peak on Wednesday. So through Tuesday, we've got highs of up to 25 degrees. Places like the North Devon, North Wales, North Devon also seeing the low 20s as well. And it's because we've got the Föhn effect, which if you've not heard of it, it means that the air cools at a different rate to what it does when it comes over mountains. So that change in heating and cooling as the air rises and sinks means that the temperatures increase on the other side of the mountain compared to the wind direction. We've got videos of that on our YouTube channel you should check out if you want to know more details on that. So it's an effect that often brings those high temperatures in quite localised places. So the north coast of Wales, North Devon, we often see it on the Moray coast as well, in the northeast of Scotland as well. So they could see 22 degrees up there through this afternoon too. So those are the sorts of places that are going to see the highest temperatures through today. Into Wednesday, it's more parts of the southeast. So you see 24 degrees coming up as a maximum temperature here for London. It's quite likely we'll see temperatures closer to 26 for these areas. And actually, for many areas of central England, temperatures in the 20s, 21 degrees across the south coast. Is starting to get cooler though across the northwest. And then on Thursday, quite a notable change. There could be a 10-degree difference in the maximum temperature between Wednesday and Thursday for parts of western areas of the UK, particularly down in the southwest where I am here in Met Office HQ. But I think actually the southeast will hold on to that heat for one more day into Thursday. Now there's a few headlines going around that a heat wave is coming or in the midst of a heat wave. This is not technically a heat wave. For those who need a reminder on a heat wave definition, well, there's a threshold temperature for all different regions of the UK that's anywhere between 24 degrees and 27 degrees, and you need temperatures to be above the threshold for 3 consecutive days, and we are not going to see temperatures widely above the threshold for 3 consecutive days. So we're not expecting any heat wave thresholds to be met. Having said that though, it is a fairly notable spell of warm weather. Let's take a closer look at those highs on Wednesday, because it's Wednesday's high temperature that could bring us the most notable highs. So I'm just going to click around. This is the temperatures through the week that show you that peak. So we've got the maximum temperature on the top here and the minimum temperature on the bottom. It's worth noting as well that overnight temps are going to be quite high too for the next couple of nights, but then they do dip down later on in the week when that colder air moves in, when that cold front pushes through. So any gardeners watching, beware, there is a risk of frost, especially a grass frost, if you're thinking about getting your plants out. So highs across, if I just focus on the more southeastern areas, you can see quite widely, we're down just to the south of London. There's Harrow for you, 23 degrees. I think anywhere really, to be honest, across that London area could see the 26, potentially 27 degrees. Now, if we see over 26 degrees, it'll be the warmest temperatures we've seen this early in April since 2020, a particularly notable spring for all of us. And if we see over 26.7, well, that will be the highest temperature we've seen through early April ever on record. The current record is from the 4th of April, 1946. We had 26.7 degrees. Now, it's not close to the April record on the overall April record, which is over 29 degrees from the 16th of April. But this early in April, this could be a very notable warmth by the time we get to Wednesday. So we will be keeping a close eye on that, but it's not going to be a long-lived warm spell. Big change Wednesday into Thursday. And you can see that very nicely on the temperature change maps. So this is one day compared to the next. So this is how the temperatures compare from the previous day. So Tuesday's warmer than Monday, Wednesday warmer than Tuesday for most of us. Like cold air starting to come into the northwest already. And then there's quite a contrast Thursday as that cold front's kind of halfway across the UK. For some areas of the northwest, it could be a good 10 degrees. A good 10 degrees cooler. Let's get on to Thursday. There we go. Yeah, this is, I think, going to be the most interesting day where you really will notice a difference. It's a thing with spring, isn't it? It's a fickle old month that gives us a bit of everything. Feel like it's summer one day and then you're back into winter the next. And I think Thursday's going to be one of those days for parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, North Wales even, and as I said, down towards the southwest as well, the north coast of Cornwall. If you're down there for the Easter holidays as well, you will notice a difference. Yeah, close to 10 degree difference. We've got the scale here of how much the temperature varies from day to day. But it still, in fact, could be an even warmer day into Thursday across some southeastern areas. I think we're quite likely to see potentially 25 degrees once again across more southeastern areas. And then Wednesday, that cold air is pushed in quite widely across the UK. Maximum temperatures around 9 to 14 degrees. So that's about average, to be honest, if not a little bit below average for more northwestern areas. Now that comes with more unsettled weather and potentially some wetter weather. And as I said, Friday into Saturday, we could see some quite windy weather with an area of low pressure moving in. Let's look at more details of that area of low pressure. So it's Friday into Saturday. So if I just go back a little bit, you can see it's starting to develop. So why is it developing? Well, it's this strong area of the jet stream, the core of the jet stream, interacting with that low pressure to deepen it, to allow that air to rise, bringing that unsettled weather, the rain and the strong winds. Now, for those that don't know what causes the jet stream to develop, well, it's due to a contrast in temperatures across parts of the Atlantic. And you can see that contrast in temperature. If I take the jet stream off, you can see this pool of cold air pulling up from northern Canada, down from Greenland, interacting with that tropical air, and it's where those two air masses meet, the contrast, where we get the jet stream developing. And that's going to deepen this area of low pressure, and it will push up to the northwest of the UK through Friday night into Saturday, bringing many of us pretty unsettled weekend. If I turn off the jet stream and put the rain on, you can see there'll be bands of showers. It doesn't look like it's going to be a total washout this weekend. I think it's going to be unsettled and cooler. So a showery mix and just feeling a bit windy and a bit cold. More southeastern areas getting the best of any drier weather. We can see how the rainfall totals look for the weekend. So this is the we've got the 24-hour rainfall totals for Friday and into Saturday. And you can see, I don't think that data's loading properly actually. If I just go back to the summary map there, that looks a bit better. You can see that it's more western areas of the UK seeing that rainfall pushing in. But before then, we've not got a lot of rainfall. I think this starts a bit later on. So we've got some wet weather pushing in. We can actually look at it a little bit better just on the rain itself. So yeah, this is the current picture. There is a bit of uncertainty in how that low pressure system develops. All systems, though, do sort of develop a area of low pressure. It's quite how deep it is and the exact position. There's some variations, but I think all outcomes bring wetter and windier weather to northwestern areas, slightly drier weather to the southeast. None of the outcomes actually bring a low pressure across the UK, making that wetter weather more widespread. So you can see it really becomes focused across western areas, and then it kind of elongates, and then we start to bring up some more southerly air as well. So a bit of a mixed picture over the weekend at the moment. Obviously, we'll be keeping an eye on that as well. So the Met Office model wants to keep that area of low pressure out to the north and west. And we often look at different models when we're looking at this. And in fact, the ECMWF model also wants to do a pretty similar thing. if I put this is the pressure sequence. So let's just scroll to, there we go. I go to Friday night because that's when it looks like it will be the strongest. So this is ECMWF model, the European Longer Range Model. Here at the Met Office, we look at our own model, particularly for shorter range periods because it's the highest resolution, and obviously our own model. But when we're looking slightly further ahead, we often compare models because that gives us a better idea of confidence. Lots of people always ask, why are we looking at lots of models? Why don't we just look at our own? Well, why would you just look at one thing when you've got lots of options to look at? And sometimes other models do have better solutions or more favoured solutions, particularly at longer time ranges. And this ECMWF data here is not just one run of the model, it's an ensemble run. So we've got all the different outputs. Now the ensemble runs vary because the initial conditions, the starting point, are slightly tweaked just to give us an idea of the potential uncertainty, the potential error in the initial readings, the initial setup of the atmosphere. And then we push that in time and see how those initial errors create bigger differences in time. Sometimes there's huge differences, sometimes there's only small differences. And this is one of the situations where there's only kind of pretty small differences. So I'll just click through some of the different model outcomes. These are different members. There's 51 of them, and all of them have a low pressure system. Actually, I'll stand over here, probably standing in the way. All of them have something out to the northwest of the UK. Quite a deep area of low pressure through Friday night, but the exact depth and how deep it is, well, the same thing. The exact position of it does vary a little bit. So that is something we'll be keeping an eye on. But as I said, we're not expecting anything of any similar strength to Storm Dave at the moment. So a more unsettled turn to the end of the week and into the weekend, a showery, cooler setup to come. And the long range forecast, for those that are wondering, when will the fine weather return? Well, we can look at the probability plot a little bit further ahead. So this shows you the different scenarios, all the different ensemble data I just explained, and this is from a slightly different model, is grouped into types of weather patterns. So low pressure dominating and high pressure dominating. Blues are the low pressure dominating, reds are that high pressure dominating. And it's put into a probability plot, so you can see for each day the kind of split, the ratio of what's more likely. So for Friday and into the weekend, those blues are quite likely. But then actually the longer range forecast has high pressure pretty close to the UK. So it does look like it actually is going to stay relatively dry for many of us into the outlook. Obviously we've still got the risk of this low pressure, slightly more southwesterly winds coming in from the southwest. And this is the Scandinavian high, the kind of brighter red that's most likely. So high pressure being based more out to the east, bringing in southerly winds, but then that kind of also allows more southwesterly low pressures to come in, which is what is happening this weekend and over the last weekend and this weekend, with the low pressure coming down to the southwest and then moving up north, being pushed up with this high pressure down to the east, bringing with these southerly winds. So it does mean that it's most likely to stay relatively dry, not completely dry, of course, and there's the potential to see some further warmer spells as well through the rest of April as the heat over the mid-continent continues to build. Sea temperatures beginning to rise, still quite chilly for a swim. I was at the coast this weekend and the onshore wind really does make a difference. You do need to get in the shelter of the wind at this time of year to enjoy the sunshine. It's worth noting as well for the sunshine this week, pollen levels are high. It's tree pollen at this time of year. It doesn't affect as many of us, but I think some of us will have been noticing that, and they are high throughout this week. UV levels moving up to the higher end of moderate as well. So we are at risk of burning. I think people get caught off guard at this time of year, don't they? People try and get out there and enjoy it because they've missed it. But yeah, it could bring some potential risk of skin damage. So make sure you apply the sun cream if you are heading out through the next couple of days. Now, I made a promise at the beginning to have a look around the globe at the cyclones that are going on across the parts of the Pacific. So we have got severe tropical cyclone Maila, which is a category 4 that's moving across the Solomon Islands. That's the most notable thing going on across the globe at the moment. I'm actually going to go on to the rain to show us this. So let's zoom out a little bit. So it's the Solomon Islands and Papua New Guinea as well that are likely to be affected by this area. Here we go. It's tropical cyclone Maila, M-A-I-L-A. Now that is expected to move across the Solomon Islands and then towards Papua New Guinea throughout the next couple of days, and then over to parts of Queensland. As it becomes a much weaker feature, it could bring some notable rainfall here. Now that is potentially, it could bring sort of 200 to 300 millimetres of rainfall, quite a lot of heavy rain. It's a pretty slow moving system. Now it is notable for this area because you don't normally get tropical cyclones of this strength. It's sort of category 3 verging on category 4 in this part of the Solomon Islands for a number of reasons. So for cyclones, typhoons, hurricanes, you need the moisture, you need warmth, and you need something to get it going, to keep it going. So often when these systems bump into land and cooler seas, they start to weaken. And close to this area across the Solomon Sea then and the Solomon Islands, because there's various bits of land as well, and there's not as much forcing. It's unusual to see a large system continue to be maintained. It's got to be quite a slow moving system to allow it to continue to deepen and not reach land. So this is quite unusual, and there's the potential for it to be the strongest cyclone to affect the Solomon Islands ever, in fact. And so we'll be keeping a close eye on that one. We've got a global team here that keep an eye across the whole globe for potential impacts as well to weather. So it's parts of the Solomon Islands and Papua New Guinea that are most likely to be affected by that. And then over here as well, there's another area of low pressure. That's a cyclone, severe tropical cyclone Vaianu, a category 3 cyclone. Let's see how that one develops. So that's expected, we need to go back. That's expected to make landfall in Fiji through Tuesday and into Wednesday, as you can see there, and then it moves southwards, but it does weaken. It starts to lose its forcing as it moves down into the cooler seas, but it does begin to approach parts of New Zealand. And although it will be a weaker system by the time it reaches New Zealand, and the track of it is not exact, it's got the potential to bring some quite severe strong winds and heavy rainfall to the North Island of New Zealand later on this week. You can see this is the Met Office global model that's got that moving into the North Island through this weekend, Saturday into Sunday. Potentially some quite notable heavy rain and strong winds there. Meanwhile, that tropical cyclone Maila has dissipated, but it has got the potential to bring some pretty wet weather to parts of Queensland as well. Let's see if you can see how that rainfall builds up these areas. I mean, yeah, look at that one. Zoom in, New Zealand there. This is the 24-hour rainfall totals up over this weekend. Potentially over 100 millimetres of rain. Obviously, they're moving into wintertime there as we start to move into summertime. And before then, the heavy rainfall here. You can see the Solomon Islands moving into the far east of Papua New Guinea as well, in excess of 150 millimetres through the next few days. So expecting some flooding problems in these areas. So a few things going on elsewhere. I know some of you like to see some of that global weather. We've got an amazing wealth of data and on hand to us on this board here. But that's all I've got time for. I hope you've enjoyed this week's deep dive. Thank you so much for joining me. If you've got any questions about what we've discussed, well, let us know in the comments. We do check the comments for questions in particular that we go over in our weekly live show. That's on a Friday, 12:15. If you've not caught it before, well, you must. You can watch it live or you can watch back. But the benefit of watching live is you can even ask questions there and then. We answer questions from previous videos, questions from you in the comments box. It's on YouTube as well as Facebook, and we do get that on Spotify too. So make sure you check us out across all of our channels. Don't forget to subscribe. Let us know in the comments if you'd like to see anything else, what else you'd like from us. We are taking ideas on board at all times, so we love to hear from you. And thank you for joining us. I hope you had a brilliant Easter weekend and you do get to enjoy some of the springtime sunshine over the next couple of days. But otherwise, I'll catch you on the live on Friday with Alex Birkhill, and have a lovely rest of your week. Bye-bye.